Um, we've been looking over the last number of weeks at Jesus' death and resurrection in the sermon. And over the last number of weeks in the sermon, we've seen that Jesus is a great king. But in our children's address, we've been saying that that's the story of the whole Bible. And let's do a quick recap of what we've seen. We saw it in the very beginning. God created the heavens and the earth and everything in them. So that makes him in charge of it all, king over everything. And then we saw that God made Adam and Eve. And Adam and Eve, what were they to do? They were to live with God as their king, to enjoy a good and a kind king and a loving friendship with him. But Adam and Eve decided that they didn't want God to be king, and they disobeyed the only command that God gave them, that they weren't to eat from a particular tree. They could eat from lots of trees, just not one. And they decided, no, we'll be king and queen. We'll take the fruit and we'll do our own thing. And God had said that that would bring death into the world, and it brought a lot more than death. Everything went downhill from then, and sickness and suffering and death and disease came into our beautiful world. But we saw that God wasn't going to leave it there. God spoke a promise in Genesis chapter 3 that he would send a rescuer who would rescue even though it would hurt him. And then, as we go on into the Old Testament, we saw that God gave pictures of this rescuer. This rescuer would be someone like Moses, who brought the people out of Egypt, rescued them from slavery. He would be someone like David, who would fight on behalf of his people. He would come and live amongst his people just like God did in the Old Testament when they were all living in tents, and God said, "Make me a tent. I'm coming to stay with you." And actually in John chapter 1 this morning, the little word that we read that said Jesus came and dwelt among us is the same word that's used for that tent in that picture. Jesus came and tented among us. He came and lived among us like God did in the Old Testament. And then the pictures of the king who rescues, we saw that the king is also a sacrifice for our sins, so that the price is paid and we can be forgiven. But there's not just pictures of our king in the Old Testament. Also in the Old Testament, there's men who speak promises of the king. And do you see, as you look at that little drawing is the same as the one from Genesis chapter 3. There it is. The promise that was made in Genesis chapter 3, more details come in the rest of the Old Testament. And we hear that this rescuer is going to be born to a woman. He's not just going to appear magically from nowhere fully grown. He's going to be born as a little baby, and to a special kind of woman called a virgin. The prophet Isaiah tells us that. And then God tells David, and you can't really see the detail here, so we'll go big. There's David's family tree. We're told that the rescuer, the rescuing king, is going to be born into the family of King David. And you see at the top, we see Boaz and Ruth, and then we come down to Obed and Jesse, and then there's David, second from the end, from the right-hand end, and coming right down through his family tree to Jesus at the very bottom. So the rescuer is going to be born into the family line of David, into David's family. And then we hear that he's going to be born. Micah tells us that he's going to be born in a particular place. Can you see the map? Well, there it is, a little bit bigger. Where is he going to be born? The rescuer is going to be born in Bethlehem. In Bethlehem. That's where he'll be born. And then we have another prediction in the Old Testament that the rescuer is not just going to be born, but he's going to do things. He's going to cause the blind to see. There's a blind man being helped across the road, but Jesus would come and he would cause the blind to see, or the king would come and cause the blind to see, and the lame to walk, Isaiah tells us as well. And Jesus did all of those things. But that wouldn't be all that the rescuer would do. The rescuer would come. And Isaiah tells us that the rescuer would be put to death. And he also said that the rescuer wouldn't stay dead. The rescuing king would rise from the grave, that he would see the light of life. And there's our picture of the cross and the tomb with the door open. All of this was told in the Old Testament. Prophecies and predictions about the rescuer who would come. Boys and girls, isn't this really exciting? That not only did God give us pictures in all the stories in the Old Testament, but he gave promises. Promises that were very detailed, that said the rescuer would come. He'll be born to a woman. He'll be born as a little baby. He'll be born in David's family. He'll be born in Bethlehem. He'll make the blind see and the lame walk. And yes, he will be pierced for our sins, but that'll not be the end. He will rise from the dead. And you know what, boys and girls? All throughout the Old Testament, they were wondering, who is the baby that will be born? Who is from David's family that will rescue us? Will it be Solomon? Would it be any of the people that were around Bethlehem? Imagine the excitement in Bethlehem each time a baby was born. Where are these miracles? The blind seeing and the lame walking. Who is the rescuer going to be? And they wait, and they wait, and they wait, and we're going to have to wait too. We're going to have to wait until next time to see what the next part of the story is. But I want you to be excited that God made all these promises, and especially that he kept all those promises. Because we already know the answer to those question marks, don't we? We know that God kept all those promises. And if he kept all those promises, what do you think he'll do with all the other promises that he's made? Do you think he'll keep them too? I think so too.